Hey everybody, it's Caroline from Wolfpack Woodcraft, and today I'm going to be sharing my experience with a tornado recently. It went through our neighborhood, leaving us without power for over 30 hours, and it caused a lot of damage to Corey's parents' neighborhood, where some houses were even flattened. It was pretty eye-opening experience, honestly. I'm just going to share with you things that I was glad that we had and things that I learned from this. So let's jump in. So we're just going to jump into the story of what happened. So we were out in our garage working on one of our vehicles, and I needed something from the house, so I ran into the house, got that, came back outside. You could tell that there was going to be a pretty big storm. I thought it was just going to be a thunderstorm. So I went in to the garage and I told Corey that I thought it was going to storm, and the power went out, which isn't uncommon, but it usually comes back, at most. I don't know. It usually comes back, right? So we waited a little bit and it wasn't coming back on. The wind was just whipping outside. So we went into the house and we were kind of watching from our back entry because we have a large tree that has a lot of dead limbs that can be pretty dangerous because it's literally between the house, the propane tanks, and then where we keep our vehicles. And some of those branches were starting to come down, so we went outside to pull the branches away from the propane tank so that there wasn't something worse that happened. One of the branches had hit the roof, which luckily didn't do any damage. And it didn't take very long, and then the wind settled down. We stayed out there trying to clean up a little bit, and then we went back in the house. The power still wasn't on. At this point, it had probably been about a half an hour. And Corey got some stuff plugged in, and I noticed that we had some missed calls from his mom. So we called her back, and she told us that a tornado had hit their neighborhood and that they had a lot of significant damage. They had trees that were completely gone. Their garage was damaged. Their camper was tipped over. The house directly behind them was gone. And so we asked her, do you need us to come out there and start cleaning up? Like, how are you guys? And she said that she would appreciate if we came out there, but to look at the weather and make sure that it would be safe. So we did that. We looked at the weather, and there wasn't any more tornadoes or anything supposed to be headed our way. So we started gathering some supplies. I hadn't asked on the phone with her if they had power, but we just kind of assumed because we didn't have power that they didn't have power. So we packed up some supplies to bring over in case they didn't have power, and grabbed extra things like extra toilet paper. We grabbed water, we grabbed the luggable loo, all that kind of stuff. Got packed up, had headlamps, and went out there. And as we were driving into their neighborhood, you could see a lot of the damage that had happened. And they actually had fire trucks that were blocking the road because the 2 blocks that they're on had the most damage. And the firefighters, which I'm sure they were told, like, don't let gawkers in because they're trying to clean up, and there was gas leaks because some people had natural gas, and once the house is gone, that gas line's exposed and leaking, and so they're trying to find these gas leaks and make sure that everyone's safe. Go to the homes with damages. Again, make sure everyone's safe. We were like, no, our parents live here. They're right on the end of the road. And he's like, I don't know if I should. He's like, where did you say your parents live? We're like, it's that house right there with the camper that's tipped over. So then he's like, oh, okay, fine. If you're going right there, you can go. Whatever. So then he radioed the other fire truck on the other side and said, they're just going to their parents' house. So we were able to get in and into their driveway to see them. And then at that point, a tornado is pretty eye-opening to what you could have lost, So then we all hugged and made sure everyone was okay. And then we started walking around to assess the damage, get some pictures, just see what we could see. At this point, it's pretty dark. There were some neighbors who were already starting cleanup, trying to chainsaw some trees. Granted, those were like on their houses and stuff, but we just walked around, assessed damage, kind of walked through the neighborhood to see if the other neighbors were okay and stuff, and then kind of made a game plan for the next day that we would start cleanup and what we needed to bring for that. We discussed, bringing our chainsaws over and all that. So we were there for a little while, just helping calm them down and, like I said, assess damage. And then at that point, we had to go back to our house and make sure everything was okay there, because we didn't know if we had power or not. So we went back to our house and we did not have power, and we were starving because it had obviously been a really long day. It was a long day before all that, and then we ended up not eating dinner because we were dealing with the aftermath of the tornado. So without power, I'm really thankful that we had a camping stove. We were able to make something to eat, and we just decided to go to bed. Thought we'd wake up to power the next day, and again, we did not wake up with power. So that was a little scary that we still were without power. So we have a sump pump, and that obviously wasn't working, so we didn't know what to do. And you're getting flooding because of the heavy rains. So that was not the best. Our little generators couldn't run it. So we just did what we could around our house, and then we grabbed cleaning supplies to start picking up debris, put those in our truck. So, rakes, shovels, contractor bags, our chainsaws, work gloves, and jumped in and went over to help them start cleaning up, raking and cutting the trees down and everything. And then we got home eventually, and we had power again, but we were without power for like 30 hours. It was crazy. And the damage at his parents' house, like, we're still working on getting that cleaned up, going back out there again. So it was just a really eye-opening experience about a lot of things. But really glad that nobody got hurt. Glad that we have power again. Have to say I am a fan of electricity, so there's that. But yeah, so that's kind of how I saw the tornado. And next I want to kind of break down what I'm super glad we had and what I learned from this experience. So going through this tornado, there was a lot of things I learned and a lot of things that I'm really glad that we had for preparedness already. So we're going to start with things I learned, and the main one is testing your emergency equipment, especially your backup power. So, like I said, we ended up being without power for 30 hours, a little over, and we have tested our solar generators before on our fridge, but we haven't let them run with the bottom freezer going as well. And we learned during this tornado that the solar generator won't power the refrigerator when the freezer is also running. So that was an unhappy surprise for our refrigerated goods. And had we known that prior, we would have probably had a different backup power source that could have saved that stuff. Another thing that I wish we had tested on the solar generator that we didn't was our sump pump. Now, there was a lot of heavy rain as well, and without electricity, our sump pump couldn't run, so we were getting a lot of flooding. We have an older house, not that you want water in your house regardless of age, but we have some parts where there's still wood foundation. So that is just a recipe for disaster. And I wish we had known before that this would not run that. Another small thing that I learned, but having learned it will probably make Corey very happy next time, is that headlamps are not the best lighting tool when you're working in close corners trying to get things together with someone, because I kept blinding him, and so that wasn't a very fun experience. And having both your hands to do things isn't super helpful when you can't see. So literally blinding him every time I turned around. So now, the other thing that I learned is that you want to have I guess you wouldn't call it a bug out bag because it's not for us, but a list to help you gather supplies to help someone else who's going through an emergency. And having that list broken up so you're not all sporadic, like, oh, I should grab this and I should grab this, and you have that adrenaline going, because it just helps you be organized, helps make sure that you don't forget anything, and you can deliver a pretty nice, well-rounded kit to somebody who's going through an emergency. And you could give them that list. Yeah, that would be a great idea if you could, like, make it on your computer, make copies, and then when you pack it to give to someone in an emergency, and then you have the list on top so they know everything that's in there. I just thought of that, but I like that. So yeah, and then you can just put the list in the kit and they know all the things that are in there. I think another section that kind of specifically deals with tornado, but to have on that list of items to help others, would be like a cleanup section. Because the next day when we were doing cleanup, like, we brought our chainsaws and we brought our rakes and contractor bags and all that stuff, but we only brought work gloves for myself and Corey. And then when we had other people come over to help clean up debris, they didn't have work gloves. We didn't have extra work gloves. So I think making sure you have extras of that kind of stuff is really going to help in that situation. So those were some of the things I learned. I'm really thankful that we have all our different camp stove options. So like I said, we were without power, and by the time we got home from seeing the damage at his parents' place, and we had been working on vehicles all day, we hadn't eaten dinner, we had no electricity, we have an electric stove. Having this butane burner was a lifesaver because we were able to still make a hot meal, get something in our stomachs, and which was just really nice. On par with that, like we have Mountain House and we have ramen, but it would have been nice to have some more options because a lot of our quick foods have things that need to be refrigerated. So like hash and eggs, your eggs are in the fridge, ham and cheese sandwiches, ham and cheese are in the fridge. A lot of our quick and easy meals that you kind of take for granted had to do with our refrigerator, which we weren't opening in effort to try to save and preserve the food that was in there. So having more shelf-stable meals is definitely something that we need to think about a little more. But super happy we had the stove. Great that we had all the different lighting options. But I have to say, this little lantern, this was really nice. It gave off a lot of light, and you didn't have to be holding it like your flashlights or, sticking your flashlight up like this and then you just have all the light on the ceiling. It really permeated the light, and that was great to have. I'm glad that cell phones and portable chargers exist because we were able to keep our cell phones charged, and so we were able to communicate with our family who was affected by the storm, or our family who lives far away and wanted to make sure that we were okay. And also I was able to utilize Facebook, and I actually found a really great deal because of Facebook on a gasoline powered generator that would support the needs of our house, because we had those portable chargers, and so that was great. Cell service luckily the towers weren't taken out by the tornado, but that was awesome because we, like I said, found a great deal on a generator that a local store in town, they were like, hey, we have generators for $1.99. So that was great. And definitely something else that I'm really thankful is that we do have safe spaces in our house and know where those are. And we have, one that's really safe but takes a little bit to get to, and it's hard to get the dog in there. And then one that is very secure and safe, and we can get there super fast because tornadoes takes 5 seconds to do unbelievable damage. So I'm just thankful we have a safe space and we can practice that day to day. And yeah, it was very, very eye-opening situation. Learned a lot, and I'm just really glad that everyone's safe and that we could share this experience with you and maybe help you guys prepare for a storm. Just really recommend making sure that you utilize your backup power beforehand and know what it can and cannot run. That was a really big deal for us. But yeah, very lucky that everyone was safe. Again, glad to share this with you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.